All right, and welcome back yet again to the Paisan Sports podcast. Dante DePlacido, joined as always by Zach Deal of What's the Deal Sports. So, I got to ask, what's the deal with this Hawk 2 girl? What's a Hawk? What's a 2? What is she Hawk 2ing on? And why is Bryce Harper doing it on second base? That was more
That's a question I think all
exaggerated.
of the internet's asking right now. I mean,
I
she's
just wait. I
really
just gotta step in briefly. That was way more exaggerated than any Jerry Seinfeld impression I've
I think it was
done.
pretty on point, pretty fitting
That
for
was that was like Jerry when he like impersonates himself. Or no that
I
that
think
was
that girl's asking what's the deal because she didn't know
that was
that it was
Jimmy
off
Fallon.
Jimmy
Have you ever
Fallon.
heard Jimmy Fallon's impression of Jerry Seinfeld? That's basically that
So
was. But anyway,
you're
back to the Hawk
impersonating
2
someone
girl.
impersonating somebody. So,
Oh,
yeah, that
Stubby
girl's
with a base hit, bases loaded. Anyway, yeah, go ahead. Hawk 2 girl.
yeah. So I think she's wondering how she got to this stardom. I think everybody in the world is talking about her right now, from Conor McGregor to Bryce Harper doing it on
Conor
the
McGregor mentioned her?
I think he tweeted about her. I think I saw something to that effect.
I
So
didn't see that.
he's
I saw
definitely
Liv Morgan of the WWE. She cut a promo holding her title belt, and she said, "Yeah, sometimes I got Hawk 2 and spit on that thing." So yeah,
that
this
was
thing
actually kind of fitting. That was actually a good promo. That's probably the only time that you could use that promo and it would make sense and match up.
Yeah,
So I saw
yeah.
that and I thought that was pretty funny. But it was funny because the first couple days I saw people talking about it. I saw one of my friends on Facebook was saying that he wants to draft TJ Hawkinson and Tua in fantasy and then name his team Hawk Tua, which I
Well,
thought was
somebody placed a Hawk 2 parlay where they it was a parlay where the Atlanta Hawks win the NBA Finals next year, and Tua wins NFL MVP. I think
I
the
can't even
Tua
imagine what the
part.
odds are going to be on that parlay.
I think it was like a $10. I think it was plus 25,000 if I remember right.
Well, the
Um,
Hawks like pretty much have unless Ice Trey goes back to the same Ice Trey, him and DeJounte Murray figure out what they got going on. Tua really isn't that far fetched from being MVP. He's probably got like the eighth highest odds of MVP of anybody in there, or something close to that range because the offense that he's working with and everything. So
Yeah, Tua isn't that far fetched, but there is no chance of the Hawks winning the finals next year, even if Trey Young goes back to like 2021 Trey. There's still no chance of it. But
that
it
was
is
really
fun.
fun though, honestly. Like he's somebody that a lot of people root against just because he kind of complains and whines a little bit, his style of play. But when he was
Yeah, I can't stand him.
calling and then just doing the shivering emote on everybody in the playoffs and just running through that, even though it was at the expense of the Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, that was a good time for the NBA. It's always fun to see somebody come through the woodworks. It was kind of like Anthony Edwards this year, where Anthony Edwards really gained stardom, especially with knocking out the Nuggets. So
I feel like it's blasphemous to talk positively about the Hawks beating the Sixers in the playoffs that year. I mean, that was just a very painful time as a Sixers fan.
Well,
The
they
one other
pretty much
thing,
grabbed the opportunity. Like I can be salty about that situation, but the player that the most saltiness is tied to isn't on the roster anymore, and he was pretty much the biggest issue. And that was definitely a winnable series for the Sixers. But how many winnable series have they had with Joel Embiid, or when it was with Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons, that they just couldn't win? It just happened
yeah.
way too
Well,
long. So it's something
the
that we
one The one other thing I will say about the Hawk 2 girl, what's funny is like when I first saw it kept popping up on my For You page constantly, but it would be like all these TikToks with only like 100 views where it's just like a picture of somebody's like pickup truck with that over top of it. Like, oh, you got to give it that Hawk 2 and spill on that thing. And I keep seeing like TikTok after TikTok like that with like 15 likes per TikTok, and I'm like confused by it because I'm like, is this even a trending sound? All these videos just have like 10 views. Like, I don't care. Why does it keep showing me this? And then like a few days later, it's just everywhere. So I don't know if I was the first one to actually witness it because I just witnessed a bunch of like insignificant TikToks with that sound, and none of it was actually funny. Like, who cares about your shiny pickup truck? Go find something else to do, redneck.
Damn, that's
But
a
yeah,
lot to see right there.
you know what?
When did you actually see the video? Because if we're being honest, I saw the video for the
I didn't
first time
see the
yesterday.
original video until I was curious enough to look into it. I just saw those memes popping up with these pickup trucks and her in front of that. I hadn't actually seen the original video. But yeah, eventually I got curious enough to look into it. But that was even after it like really blew up.
Yeah, that's usually how it goes with things, and she's definitely the talk of all the internet. It usually, there's what are some other viral videos that really came to fame? One that just popped off the top of my head when I was thinking about like viral videos that really were really popular for quite some time was the one I don't know why it first came to my mind was the Damn Daniel back at it with the white vans. That was one of
Yeah,
those.
they ended up on Ellen from that. Although a lot of viral sensations ended up on Ellen. I think of just because I met this person and I met this guy in person, but if you've seen the one clip where there's the guy with the wig on and he goes, wait, Daddy chill. And
Oh
he goes,
yeah, I
what the
seen that.
hell even
Yeah,
is
that's funny
that?
when the old dude's yelling
Yeah.
at him. Yeah.
Yeah, I met that guy in person a few years back at my buddy's New Year's Eve party at his house during COVID. Turns out he's like cousins with my boy's girlfriend. So I met him there, it was really funny because his girlfriend had on a hoodie that said "Daddy Chill." And we're all in the kitchen. He's in there too. And like, like I talked to this guy. I said, "What's up to him?" I didn't realize who he was though, because he didn't have the wig on. He wasn't doing the
He
voice.
wasn't just casually rocking the
Yeah.
wig.
Yeah, no. So I see my boy's girlfriend wearing the Daddy Chill hoodie. I was like, that's funny, Daddy Chill. And then like him, like my boy and his girlfriend start like awkwardly laughing. I'm like, what's so funny? And I just start looking around and I like look at the guy again. I'm like, oh shit. And then like everyone else in the kitchen called on. We started taking like videos of him saying it. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it's a small world, and that's how much stuff can travel on the internet. And it's just interesting to see what the next video is going to be that goes out there. But this person, I think she's like putting out merch and stuff now, so you got to capitalize on.
I hear she's putting out merch. Yeah, I hear she's putting out merch, but I'm also hearing that no one knows who she is. So I don't know what to believe.
Well, I also heard down the line that she was a preschool teacher, so that maybe she's trying to remain anonymous.
That could be a rumor, yeah. But that could be a rumor. You can never believe what you hear on the internet without like a citable source,
But it usually is those type of people that just have honest jobs, just go to the day, and then maybe they're out turning up one night, and they are being goofy on camera, and then you just turn into a viral sensation out of nowhere.
Those street interviews need to stop with those guys going out in public interviewing drunk girls like oh, what's the shortest guy you would date, or do you think I'm attractive? Like it's just like I just never like the vibe of those interviews. Like the question he asked her was like, what's the best way to pleasure a guy in bed? Like it's just like what, like stop. I don't know if you ever seen the one clip when somebody he was like, what's the most annoying thing a guy can do? And she's like, well, I'm just trying to go to the bathroom outside the club and some guy on the street stops to ask me a question.
Yeah, no, facts. Some people are out there brute honest.
But yeah,
there's so many people doing those types of videos too. And maybe it'd be fun. It'd be a different situation. Like if we went out to Philly and we went to the Eagles tailgate and we were asking pointed questions towards the Eagles. You know what I mean? That's a different
that's cool. There's that one guy on TikTok who he does that a lot. Right now he's doing it, at baseball games. But I think you've seen the one guy who'll go up to fans and be like, if you're not a casual, name the last 10 Phillies to hit 30 home runs in a season. And he does a lot of that content, and that's good content, not like all these like dumb like questions guys ask drunk girls outside the club. Like that's
what's funny too, is because a lot of my social media is like pointed towards sports, just for how involved I am with it. And then when I see that random type of stuff, I'm just like, it's just so naive to like what I'm about. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I just stay away from it. That's why I didn't even see the video, like I said, until like I saw a bunch of references to it, and then I had to look it up, and then now I see that everybody's talking about it. So I guess I was out of the loop on that one.
Yeah, I'm usually late to that stuff. I was late on the whole sketch thing, the like, what's up, brothers? Special teams, special players, special plays, whatever it was. Because guys would hit doubles and then do that at second base, like Harper.
Yeah, I
also
didn't even know who that dude was until I saw like the NFL post him.
Yeah, but anyhow, let's talk some Phillies as they're currently up 8-1, top of the ninth inning. I think Kirkering is on the mound as
How old are
somebody
you, dude?
double.
How old are you turning?
Man, listen.
You just had to
All
like
right,
literally look into the camera like this, and I'm wearing
listen.
glasses just because today. You know what I mean? I actually have bad eyesight.
Listen,
I might just take them all because there's a little bit
but
of light.
yeah, I mean Harper with another 5 RBI tonight, including a home run and a double, which I think could have been a triple. I mean, he hit it to that right center field spot in Comerica, which I think it's like 400 feet out there. And the ball hung up there for a good bit. And knowing the way Harper runs, how aggressive he is, I'm surprised he didn't go for 3 on that. But yeah, and then Boom came up after that and ripped a 2-run homer. Just right now the combo, the 2-3-4 hitters and Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, and Alec Bohm, they are scorching hot right now.
They're all batting over 300 too. Bryce has finally got his average above 300. Bohm is above 300 now too, and then Trey coming back to the lineup, he was batting 340 until his injury, and he's picked up where he left off.
Yeah, and his average hasn't really even dipped since then. He's hit in every single game since he's come back. And so right now that 2-3-4 spot in the lineup has been absolutely deadly as of late.
It really has been, and then just obviously with the June contributions that we always get from Kyle Schwarber, he's not producing as much, but he had a lump sum of a bunch of home runs in a short period of time in the past week or two, so that's always good to see.
Castellanos, he's been hitting the ball well lately as well.
His average is actually like trailing Bryson Stott by a short amount right now. So I was actually something that I texted with my uncle the other day because he's a big Castellanos hater. And I feel like Castellanos is just one of those dudes that just is always going to get hate regardless of what he does. If he gets his batting average up to 260, which would be a huge plus this year, people are still going to say, oh, well, he was horrible in the beginning of the season, this, that, the other. But he's just one of those people that just attracts negative attention, I guess, because of the eye test sometimes when he's swinging at the plate of those outside sliders that are coming in. But with him, finally upping his offensive game a little bit. This lineup looks really complete.
Pache just made a great running catch to end the game. Didn't mean to cut you off, but wow, what a great
catch. You got to show up the live updates in an 8-1 game.
Hey, it was the game-ending play. I got to bring it up.
What do you think about the outfield right now? Because they're still running the David Dahl experiment at left field. Cody Clemens is kind of rehabbing from his injury right now, and he's going to play some infield and some outfield as well. How do you think this roster is going to be constructed? Because I feel like they're almost kind of telling us in a way, like Dave Dombrowski, or the way that Rob Thompson is like treating this lineup right now. It almost like seems like the writing's on the wall that they're going to make a move for an outfielder come the deadline.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way things are going right now, I think that seems likely. Oh, Harper actually went 3 for 5. I think that seems likely because right now, I mean, the way it is, like the platooning in left field, just these like veteran guys who you can't really like rely on to be an everyday starter. It's kind of like not really constructed to be like your postseason lineup, the lineup you're going into the postseason with. So I do think they are teetering towards making a move for another outfielder. And I hope they are, because I would rather have Johan Rojas up here than starting guys like David Dahl and Whit Merrifield. I mean,
well, that's why I'm just trying to figure out like what they're actually doing, because it seems like David Dahl is getting a lot of time, and it's like he is making the most of his opportunities. It just doesn't seem like something that is just going to be there for the long run. And I feel like Brandon Marsh might be better suited in left field. It's just how are they going to get the roster spot to move Johan Rojas up as the center fielder, or do they start going with a more of a approach with Christian Pache at center field and then Brandon Marsh in left, or they just trade for somebody at center field?
But that's the thing
that they're most tied to are a guy like Luis Robert who plays center field.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, I like Johan Rojas better than Christian Pache. He's faster out there, some better defense. Although Pache does play very good defense, but I like Rojas a little better. He's
It's
faster.
close
I think
between those two because I feel like they're pretty similar players. I kind of trust
they're
Pache
very
more.
similar players. I think Johan Rojas is just the better version, but I think there are similar players. They rely on speed, defense, and contact hitting. You know what I mean?
I
They have
trust
real
Christian
pop.
Pache more with his bat, but I trust Johan Rojas more in the outfield. But it's not. It's kind of like teetering both sides to very close on either way. So I mean, at the end of the day, they just have to figure out what they're really going to do. I mean, to move around this entire lineup in their infield seems set with Trey Turner. They're never going to
Oh, the
move him to the
infield's
outfield like
perfect.
we all dreamed about. Bryce isn't going to the outfield unless they make a crazy trade for a first baseman, but it just seems like a rental. And I kind of want to target this deadline with somebody that's going to be here for the long haul in the future, especially if
Luis
we're going to
Robert
give up
Jr.
prospects. Yeah, especially if they're going to give up prospects. I'm willing to give up prospects. So I don't want to do it for a rental, a guy like Pete Alonso or Paul Goldschmidt, especially with those guys. I mean, Pete Alonso's a
Yeah,
little bit
and
younger.
Paul Goldschmidt's
Goldschmidt's
what,
like 34.
35 years old?
Yeah, 34, 35 years old. So
Yeah, I mean, because that's the thing is right now you have a lot of aging players on the roster. You got JT Realmuto, Zach Wheeler is getting up there in age, Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos. So I think you need to keep a healthy mix of, older players and young talent to make sure that like once those guys get old and they can't perform anymore, then you can keep things going. I mean, that's kind of the mistake this team made back in the day, during the Ruben Amaro tenure. And, once that core of players got old, we had nothing left after that. And then we stunk for 10 years again. You know what I mean? We went from 93 to '07, right? Not making the playoffs, 14 years without making the playoffs. And then we finally make the playoffs again. We win 5 straight division titles. And then we went to another 10 years of not making the playoffs again. Like, let's keep this going this time. So let's keep some young talent so that we can actually like make this sustainable over an extended period of time, like a lot of other ball clubs have done.
Yeah, I just keep thinking about Juan Soto and how he was there and available, and it would have solved a bunch of outfield issues, and they just didn't pull the trigger on that.
I'm hearing Juan Soto could potentially. What is he? Is he on the final year of his contract? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's on a 1-year deal right now.
Yeah,
Yes.
so Juan Soto could be a possibility going into next season, which I think would be really funny if all those guys from the Nationals really. I mean, you already have Harper, Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber over here. If you also add Juan Soto, I think that's just hilarious.
Yeah, and it would work too, and it would work in flush, and it's not like those guys are kind of stepping on each other's heels. I mean, it would definitely work out in the lineup. So, but you can't look back on that. It was definitely a hefty price tag, but if you could have got something done over the summer and not made him a Yankee and made him a Philadelphia Philly, that would have been huge. And I kind of felt like I was kind of like hinting towards that last year, but I kind of felt like it was almost a luxury to make a trade like that because of how set that we already were. But I just didn't know the injury bug was going to catch up to him and the outfield was going to be platooned in this way. Because now with the current outfield situation with David Dahl getting almost a start every single day, it kind of really seems like a platoon now.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I kind of don't like that. It feels sloppy to me to just have like this platoon where you're just trying out different players. I think they need just a set everyday lineup for the most part. So
but I also understand that it's a long season and you kind of have to pick and choose your spots. And like, if you can get 20 games out of a guy that may not be the most MLB caliber type guy, of everyday starting guy, but you're able to get by with them and they're still winning the game 8-1 when they're starting guys like David Dahl. And I'm not just trying to pick on David Dahl because, like I said, he
hasn't been hitting poorly. He's been okay. He's been all right.
It's just more so like I feel like that position can definitely be upgraded, and this is the time of year that you do things like that. What do you think trade deadline wise? Do you think it's more important to get bullpen help, or do you think a position
No.
player is needed?
I think you want to get an outfielder. I mean, you look at the bullpen. The bullpen looks great. You have Jose Alvarado. You have Sir Anthony Dominguez, who's been a hell of a lot. I think since April 22nd, he's only given up one run. I remember hearing up until he gave up a run the other night that he hadn't given up one since April 22nd. So I think he's only given up one run since then, if I'm remembering that date correctly. So you have him. You have Jose Alvarado. You have Matt Strahm, who's been lights out this year, probably on his way to an all-star appearance. I don't know why they're showing us the results for the position players and not the pitchers, but hey. So you have them. You have Kirkering, who's been lights out this year. And you have Jeff Hoffman. I mean, that's what? How many guys did I just name? Jose, Sir Anthony, Hoffman, Strom, Kirkering. That's 5 really solid guys coming out of the bullpen.
And they still have Marte, who's injured right now, who's actually been pretty decent this year too.
Yeah,
he's not on the caliber of the guys that you just mentioned, but he's definitely another added arm that can take some pressure off him.
Yeah, and then you have other guys too who like maybe can be good at times, like Soto or Ruiz. It's like, you know, they're not like they're not great, but they're not like, oh, if he comes out of the pen, you just know he's giving up runs. It's like he might have a bad appearance out of the pen, but he might give you like a few consecutive shutdown appearances out of the bullpen. So I don't think the bullpen's a big need. I would rather them get another outfielder or just bring Rojas back up after some more time in AAA.
Yeah, and they just signed Christopher Sanchez to a contract extension for 4 years, so he's going to be in the loop. And that confidence that they're putting in him, giving him that contract, we know that
it's a team-friendly deal. I mean, he's not getting paid that much. I think it's a great contract, honestly.
Oh, it's definitely a great contract. He's been pitching really well to the point where I wonder what they do with him come playoff time, if they're going to make him the long arm in the bullpen, because they usually are going to go 3 deep, and we know who those 3 guys are going to be between Wheeler, Ranger, and Aaron Nola. But what are they going to do with that 4th starter?
I think so. For like the first 2 rounds, you know, the wild card, or if the season were to end today, we actually wouldn't even have to play in the wild card. But if you did,
first off, real quickly before you answer my question on that, do you think it's important to play in the wild card round just to kind of stay in rhythm and not just kind of be on your butt doing nothing, or do you think it's more important for them to get the number 1 seed and not have to worry about playing that extra round of baseball?
I don't know if it matters that much. I mean, we did make it to the World Series as a wild card team. We did make it to the NLCS a year after that as a wild card team. But then, I mean, you look at the team we lost to, the Houston Astros. I don't think they were a wild card team that year. But then you do look at the Atlanta Braves, who just collapsed in the NLDS both times. But yeah, I don't know if it matters too much. I would kind of like wild card just because it means more playoff baseball. Which I heavily enjoy, and I feel confident enough in this team that, you know, the wild card will be no sweat for them.
Wild card's sketchy though, because 3 games, you know, any team can beat any team that makes the playoffs can beat any other team in a 3-game set.
That's a good point, but I mean,
when you go down the line, there's more games involved.
The way I always look at things is it doesn't matter what we prefer, because whatever happens is what's going to happen. You know what I mean? So we can prefer whatever you want to prefer, but I mean, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. So, oh well. But anyhow, to answer your question, I think with the wild card in the NLDS, you know, with the 3-game series and a 5-game series, you stick with the 3-man rotation of Wheeler, Ranger, Nola. You might only need Wheeler and Ranger in the wild card if Ranger is the second guy. But then I think
already anointing Ranger over Aaron Nola, because that's actually a question that might become tough. You know, Wheeler's the ace. Who's that second guy? Who's that solidified second guy?
Think that will I think once we get close to the postseason, I think that's going to be a big debate, honestly, because I mean, Nola is more solidified. He's the guy with the big contract, but Ranger is leading the league in ERA right now. By the way, the top 3 NL ERA leaders are Ranger, Wheeler, and Nola.
Isn't that
Braves,
so crazy to think about? We just
yeah.
say that so lightly, like this season hasn't been completely magical and just beyond expectations for everybody. There's
Oh
people
wait, no,
still
not
saying,
Enola, not Enola. I mean Christopher Sanchez.
yeah, I was gonna say Christopher Sanchez. I think
Yeah,
Nola's got like the fourth highest ERA on the team, and he's still in the top 10 in the NL.
yeah. But anyhow, yeah. So I think first 2 rounds wild card LDS you go with 3-man rotation. And then I think in the wild card in the World Series, I think you give Christopher Sanchez a start in both of those series. I mean, granted they get that far, but I think in a 7-game series, I think why not roll out Christopher Sanchez with how well he's pitching this season, as long as he still is pitching that well going into the postseason.
And that was
Um,
kind of the thing with Ranger too, is Ranger wasn't solidified, and then he got thrown into huge moments in the playoffs, and that's when he really started to change as a pitcher.
yeah, yeah. I think the postseason has really made or break some guys really. Um, Ranger was incredible if I remember correctly in the wild card game against the Marlins, if I'm remembering things right. But
He was
yeah,
also a huge part in the Cardinals series too, the year before.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, and that's the thing. And now Ranger Suarez is like a rock star. You know what I mean? So it's like for Christopher Sanchez, as long as he keeps doing what he's doing, it's going to be like this is the season of him starting to prove himself without being solidified. But then he'll go if he goes into next season now pitching this well again, then that will be, you know, Christopher Sanchez will be a solidified, star pitcher for the most part. So, by the
I
way,
wonder if they even put Walker on the 26-man roster come playoff time, because that's going to be
I
interesting.
I think I'm
Between him or
praying
Spencer Turnbull,
he's somehow gone at the deadline. I want him out of here so bad. I'm so glad he has a blister on his finger and he's missing Wednesday's start in favor of Spencer Turnbull. I hope Turnbull pitches lights out so that maybe that persuades the Phillies to
well,
keeping.
Spencer Turnbull really hasn't looked like the same person since he's went to the
Yeah,
bullpen,
but
which is kind of
that's
annoying.
because he's been coming out of the bullpen. He's not a reliever. He's a starting pitcher. So I hope he really shows us something on Wednesday's day game. I hope that happens. But before we move on, the one thing I did want to mention, just because I was looking things up just to refresh my memory on how 2011 went, because obviously that was the other year the Phillies starting rotation was absolutely lights out. Because of course, if you remember right, they went into that season with Joe Blanton as the 5th starter because he was also on the Sports Illustrated cover. He ended up pitching only 8 or 10 games. He only had 8 or 10 starts with an ERA of like 5.7. But Vance Worley pitched, I think, about 20 starts that season because I remember he came in as the 5th guy after that. And his numbers were lights out as well. I think he had like a 3.0 ERA. So that was just, like people always talk about the 4 aces, and then they'll like talk about Joe Blanton as the 5th guy, but Vance Worley just does not get talked about enough from that season. He pitched.
I actually have a funny story about Vance Worley. I have like a 2XL Jordan jumpsuit that was his.
Really, I have
Uh,
Jalen Mills sneaker.
yeah, I have
Um,
that. A friend of mine, he's like a big sneakerhead and sells like a bunch of sneakers and stuff. And Vance Worley had like a bunch of stuff that he left when he left Philadelphia, and he never wanted it back or asked for it back. So I ended up with this like gigantic jumpsuit that I used to bust out all the time in random moments. And yeah, it's pretty funny. It's gigantic. It's like literally like meant for a 260-pound man.
yeah, I mean he was a tall guy, but anyway, now it's time for my meatball of the week. Oh wait, that voice was off. It's usually more of a meatball of the week.
There it is.
Exaggerated, yeah. Anyhow, my meatball of the week is Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick, you were supposed to be at training camp for the New York Jets. Instead, you're cosplaying in Japan. What are you doing?
Man, what is going on with Hassan Reddick? I didn't even know he was that type of guy. I mean, he just
I
doesn't.
didn't know either.
Nothing about him exudes that. You know what I mean?
No,
That's something
no.
that I would think about him. His voice is like so deep too, and everything. I mean,
Yeah,
nothing
I
about
never really saw
Haas
that
play like
coming.
ever made me think that Hassan Reddick was tied to it, and not only tied to it, but missing um, Jets time to go do that.
Yeah, I
So,
think he's
I mean,
disgruntled.
I
With
think
like, football.
he's really putting the stakes in the ground on the tent, and I think he's really, he's if he's not getting that new contract, he's not going to play, and that kind of just shows that maybe Howie Roseman did the right thing and moving on from him, because the Eagles weren't budging on the number that they were willing to give him, and yeah. The other thing about it too is that I think Hassan Reddick is actually right in that he should earn more money. But when you sign the contract like that, I mean, it was kind of like the Eagles just made another really good team friendly deal. He outplayed his contract, and he wouldn't budge off the number, and they got rid of him. And hopefully it turns into a second round pick. But that's also something that's up in the air, because if he doesn't ever get onto the field for the Jets, then the pick won't be that high for the Eagles. So it might be a lose lose situation for both teams.
I mean, yeah. Listen, I along with many other Eagles fans were definitely upset when we traded away Hassan Reddick, and I still am upset about it. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, but we got Bryce Huff. It's like it's not nearly the same thing. Um, and although I still am upset we had to trade away Hassan Reddick, seeing that photo, I'm a little less upset. I'm a little less upset because I'm like,
Would you have given Hassan, say Hassan Reddick wanted 22 to 22 million a year? Would you have given that contract and not given Bryce Huff his contract? Would you have done that if that was the
absolutely,
case?
absolutely, without question, I would much rather have
How many
Hassan
years would
Reddick.
you be willing to give him on top of that? Because he's also getting up there in age a little bit too, and he's somebody
Whatever he
that like.
wants.
What do you mean whatever he wants? You're going to give him, if he says 5 years, you're going to give him 5 years.
How old is he? How old is he?
He's like
I forget.
30,
Okay,
30,
pass
31.
rushers are still effective in their mid 30s usually, unless you're
Not
Ryan
somebody with his
Kerrigan.
combination of like relying on athleticism.
Yeah, but I
He's an
mean,
undersized guy. It's not like he's like a Calais Campbell where he's 6'8" and 350 pounds, and like he just gets his hands up, bats, passes down, even though he's not making the most impact of sacking the quarterback nowadays. But it's a different type of play, you know.
yeah, I mean, like I don't like fully hate the idea of trading him away because he was going to want a massive contract, because that it's like at least we don't have to worry about that and how poorly it may or may not age. And we do have some young talent on the defensive line, and Nolan Smith and Josh Sweat and
Nolan
whoever the
Smith's like the least hyped up first round pick I think the Eagles have ever had in their life. I think
yeah.
it was
I think
also
it's because
because.
we also drafted Jalen
Yeah,
Carter
that's the
in
other
the
thing too. I
same
actually
draft
got
in
myself
the
a
same
Jalen
first
Carter,
round.
Kelly Green stitch jersey because I believe I think he's got aspirations to make the All Pro team this year. I think that's how good Jalen Carter can be. He was arguably the best player in the draft last year, and I think if you repick that draft, C.J. Stroud's the only guy that's getting his name called before him. But yeah, I mean Nolan Smith from a guy with pedigree. I think it also got watered down because of how many Georgia Bulldogs are on the Eagles roster too. I think that was another
Yeah.
thing too. It was like just throwing another Georgia Bulldog on there. But now when you look at it, I was actually looking at the posted depth chart on ESPN right now, and they have it in 3-4 format, and they have Josh Sweat as a backup outside linebacker with Melton Williams starting at one of the defensive end positions.
Wait, so then who are the two starting outside linebackers?
Nolan Smith and Bryce Huff.
They have Nolan Smith starting over Josh Sweat, really?
That's just how ESPN had it formatted. And I looked at a
Hmm.
couple other teams and how they had it for. The reason why I did that was because I was looking at the Bengals roster because I was interested to see what they have going on, because I think they're an interesting team that people forgot about. And I was just looking at their depth chart and how they're going to overcome the Joe Mixon injury. And then I realized that they got Zach Moss in the offseason, which I forgot about. And then I looked at some other depth charts, and then I came across the ESPN Eagles, and it was in 3-4 format with Josh Sweat as a backup linebacker, which I thought was pretty interesting. I don't know if it's going to be like that. I mean, they obviously rotate. And the thing about Bryce Huff is that he hasn't really ever played full-time snaps. So maybe they're just working it in, and that's just an early, depth chart. I mean, it could mean nothing. We're also talking about a depth chart in June. but I'm just telling you what I saw.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it could end up meaning nothing. Yeah, that it could just be like ESPN's projection on who they think is going to start. I did just try checking the Eagles website itself, and it said the Eagles depth chart is provided by the Eagles media team, but there was no actual depth chart. So that could also be where ESPN is getting it from, the Eagles media team. Um, but yeah, so right now they have Bryce Huff and Nolan Smith on the outside. They have, of course, N'Kobe Dean and Devin White as the inside linebackers. No surprise there with Jeremiah Trotter Jr. and Oren Burks backing them up. God, we really have no linebacker depth outside of Dean and Devin White, just Trotter Jr., and we don't even know if he's going to be that good or not. That's a little concerning.
I don't know. I kind of
Um,
like the linebacker depth, to be honest. I mean, Oren Burks was playing in the Super Bowl last year. Um, They also have the other guy that they signed, Zach Bond, who's kind of like a specialist that does all different types of things. He's not really great at anything, but he has versatility and a good special teamer. And I mean, at the end
I'm
of the
not
day,
even
if
seeing
Jeremiah
him
Trotter
moving.
Jr. can at least be a backup in the first couple years, and N'Kobe Dean's what he's advertised to be, coming from Georgia, being the leader of one of the best defenses that college football has ever seen, and then you get Devin White. I mean, I feel like people are really downplaying the impact that Devin White's going to have on the Eagles this year.
I think he's going to have a great impact. I'm a little worried because he had like a down year or two, and I'm just worried that it ends up being another Shaq Leonard situation. But I'm more confident than worried.
Well,
And
Shaq
then just
Leonard dealt with a lot of more injuries than Devin White's dealt with, and we got him at a older age than Devin White. And Devin White came with more prestige just in general, being the 5th overall pick in the draft back in the day from that crazy LSU team. So, I
yeah.
mean, I've just been a huge Devin White fan since he's came into the league and since he's been in college. And I think he's something that the Eagles just haven't had at linebacker, somebody that's just able to go sideline to sideline, pick up your running back out of the backfield and cover him down the field. I think he's just a versatile piece at that position that they really haven't had. I mean, they've tried with guys that were safeties in college, like the Nate Garys of the world. They've tried so many different things at linebacker, and it just hasn't worked. And it felt like this was the first time that they got a cheap investment and didn't have to give up anything crazy to get him. And I see him possibly being in the fold for a couple years, even after this one.
Yeah, and then just to go through the rest of this depth chart that ESPN for defense, at least, because I mean obviously we all know what the offense is going to look like.
The only question mark that was on offense that was answered when I looked at that depth chart. Like I said, I'm not going to put too much
Slot
emphasis on
receiver.
one. No, the third, well, I guess two, you could say. The third wide receiver was Paris Campbell,
Yeah.
and the right guard was Tyler Steen.
Oh, I didn't think that would be a question mark at all. I mean,
Well, a
they
lot of people
drafted
think that
the
Mekhi
second
Becton's going to
round last
slide
year.
inside and possibly play guard. So, and they
But
drafted two different guys.
anyhow, to go through the rest of this depth chart on defense, because I am noticing a couple interesting things. So I just wanted to make note of this. So for the two starting corners on the outside, they have Quinion Mitchell and they have Darius Slay, obviously, right? They have at safety Reed Blankenship and CJ Gardner Johnson, with Cooper DeJean backing up Reed and Tristan McCullum backing up CJ Gardner
Well, I've been
Johnson.
saying that I think Cooper DeJean's going to have an opportunity to possibly play at safety over
Yeah,
Reed Blankenship day one, which I think that might be the best cause of
it could.
business.
Yeah, it could be a possibility. The other thing I want to note, so they have West linebacker, right? That's the outside linebacker position that Bryce Huff is starting at. They have him starting. They have behind him Josh Sweat, and then behind him Brandon Graham. So ESPN has Brandon Graham listed as a third stringer going into the season. So I just think that's a little.
Yeah, well, also the thing about this depth chart is they're not going to put like somebody's name numerous times on the depth chart. So Brandon Grant's probably backing up everybody between all defensive line spots and even playing defensive tackle when they're rotating out of a 3-4. They're not going to put him at nose guard, but
that's
he
a
could
good
probably
point.
play inside too. So
The other interesting thing is they have Zach McPherson at third string corner with Keeley Ringo behind him. That's one thing that I doubt.
well, that's
that
what I was going to say too.
Eagle staff has Zach
Realistically,
McPherson ahead of Keeley
my
Ringo.
setup for the secondary would be C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Cooper DeJean, both at safeties. I would find a way to get Keeley Ringo on the field with Darius Slay and then Quinyon Mitchell. That's just, can Keeley Ringo play the slot corner position? Can Darius Slay maybe move over to slot corner in his later years, or is Quinyon Mitchell going to start at the slot corner position? Because I feel like Keeley Ringo.
You also have Avonte Maddox. You also have Avonte Maddox as
he just can't stay healthy. I like Avonte Maddox, and it's just I feel like he could also possibly be in the safety conversation as well, just his style of play. But he's also somebody that just can't stay healthy. So it's a really good added depth piece. But they showed what they think of Avonte Maddox after cutting him and bringing him back. They kind of showed that the leash is a little bit short on him.
And then here's actually one more interesting bit of info before we move on to our final topic real quick, and then we get out of here. At punt returner, they still have Britain Covey, but then they have listed for special teams. They just have starters listed, nobody listed at second string except for one position, which is punt returner, which is Aeneas. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Smith.
Yeah, Aeneas Smith. So I think that's kind of interesting. I mean, that's definitely a guy who I would like to see returning punts for sure.
I don't see what Britton Covey adds to the return game.
Listen, as I was the biggest Covey hater of them all up until the second half of last season. I thought he really started to show more with his punt returns. I thought he started to look pretty good returning punts. I
just don't think he'll ever get the opportunity to have a little bit of pop in his game and just be able to turn something and make a house call, because I just don't see that. I think he's a little bit
I don't think he can.
But also, I feel like people kind of downgrade what you actually have to do as a punt return. If you can go out there and just consistently catch the ball and not create turnovers and get 10 yards every single time, which pretty much is what he does. Yeah. That's pretty important to the team, and just the
I don't think you need to return it for a touchdown. I think as long as you can just field the punt successfully every time and get 10, 20 yards, I think that's pretty valuable. However, I wanted to see the other guy be on the roster instead of him. I'm blanking on his name, but the track star. I think
Devin something.
Yeah. Devin Allen. I wanted to see him instead because Devin Allen can return punts, but also watching him in the preseason last year, he was phenomenal as a gunner on special teams.
Super fast. That's tough.
I mean, he was really getting out there and making those tackles as a gunner on those punts, and I would have loved to see that incorporated into the special teams along with the punt returning. So I wanted to see Devin Allen. I still would rather see Devin Allen. I don't hate Covey, and I would definitely like to see Aeneas Smith returning some punts. I think we'll get to see that in the preseason.
Yeah, and I think with the format that's switched up on the kickoffs too, I think we might see some interesting things out there too, and especially in certain moments too. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, and it's going to take some time to getting adjusted to. But the NFL actually does a really good job. You know what was one thing that I thought was going to make more of an impact, and I just hated, but it still happens on a good clip, but it also sometimes adds to the low lights of the league that makes things interesting. Is when they first moved back the extra point.
I liked it when they moved back the extra point. It was too automatic before. It was like no one ever missed. What was even the point? No pun intended. So I mean, I've been a big fan of the new extra point this whole time. I think now it's become almost too automatic again because now kickers are really used to it. A 60-yard field goal is the new 50-yard field goal in today's NFL. I think 35 yards is becoming a little too automatic. I wouldn't hate if they backed it up to 40. But that might be a bit too much. I don't know.
I mean,
But
it's like 38 right now, so.
yeah, but for some reason, 40 just seems maybe make it 40 then.
I
I
don't
thought
know.
it was
40-yard field goal is
35.
a pretty long field goal. I mean, 38 yards is pretty long for one
I could
extra
have sworn
point.
it's 35 right now. You're telling me it's 38?
There's like 3 off the snap, too,
Hmm.
from where the ball's spotted to where it's actually kicked at.
Well, anyhow, our final topic we wanted to talk about, because this is a playoff series, an all-time playoff series. Checking in right now, we are at intermission at the end of the second period. The Florida Panthers are up 2-1 on the Oilers.
So they
I'm
might
sure,
not be blowing a 3-0 lead.
yeah. Which I know it's happened in hockey before. I know it's never happened in the NBA. I remember when the Flyers did
The
it
Flyers
against
did it versus Boston, didn't they?
yeah, it was against the Bruins that year. They went to the Stanley Cup in 2010. Not only were they down 3-0 in that series, they were also down 3-0 in game 4. And
Crazy.
yeah, and they came back to win the series. And I think there was one other team that did it in the NHL, if I'm remembering correctly. But I don't think it's ever been done in the Stanley Cup Finals before. Houston, they still have a chance. Obviously, they're only down 1. There's still an entire period to go. That's a Houston. I'm thinking of the Houston
I was
Oilers.
about to say Houston. What are you
Edmonton.
talking about?
I'm getting confused with the Houston Oilers. Edmonton, they still have a chance with a whole period to go. I think it would be pretty entertaining if the
Well, I mean,
Florida.
this is like reminiscent of LeBron versus the Warriors. I mean, they were down 3-1, have the
Yeah.
best player in the sport. Edmonton was down 3-0, had the best player in the sport in Connor McDavid. And
Mhm.
what more can you ask for playoff hockey? I mean, I'm not the biggest hockey guy. I do
Neither am
kind
I.
of pay attention to it, and I kind of
I
pay
don't.
attention to outside of the Flyers, Connor McDavid the most because he's the best
I
player in the
don't pay
league.
much attention to him either.
Yeah, well, he's definitely must see. I think he went on a streak of having like 8 points in 2 games in this series when they were down
Oh
3-0.
damn! Wow.
So he's definitely been doing his thing, and he's I think he was the youngest captain in NHL history. So it's just adding to his legacy of what he's able to do if he's able to get one of these rings and get them early. That's why I also wanted to see Luka get a ring this year, which ended up not happening. I just don't feel like he had the sufficient help, and it almost seems like it's. I don't know if I see a path back to the NBA Finals for the Dallas Mavericks in the short term. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you have an aging Kyrie Irving paired up with Luca. I
'Cause
think
I don't know if this Dallas team would have beat the Denver Nuggets. I don't know if the Timberwolves, if they would have played the Denver Nuggets again, would have beat them in a series. You know what I mean? So the stars align this year, and then when you can't get it done, the path back is just it's even harder.
yeah, that's the thing. I feel like nobody really had Dallas going to the finals. It feels like they just kind of caught fire with that backcourt of Luca and Kyrie, and it just doesn't seem sustainable enough for them to really pull that off again. I think I think that team needs some more defense. I yeah, the way the roster is constructed right now, I don't see them going back to the finals.
I agree. I agree in the short term, unless they are able to figure out maybe get a wing piece or get something. But I just don't know if they have the assets to make that happen. Speaking of another team, the hometown Philadelphia 76ers, last thing we'll talk about before we get out of here. The NBA draft is this week. First off, let me ask you, should they pick at 16, pick a player for another team and trade it, or just outright trade the pick?
I think it depends on what's available. I mean, there are trade rumors of Jimmy Butler. You
Now
know,
the rumor with Paul George is a sign and trade.
yeah. So I mean, I
Did you
think
see the rumor about Tobias Harris and the Clippers?
no.
about the Sixers signing Tobias Harris and then trading him to the Clippers for Paul George? Imagine how full circle that would be.
I think it would be even better if they did that to the Miami Heat for Jimmy Butler, because we signed and traded him over there for Josh
I don't
Richardson.
think the Heat are that dumb to make that.
Of all people, probably not. But I would love to see it. You know what I mean? If
If
they're
one
like,
team's not going to do that, I think the team that's ran by Pat Riley is not going to do that. You know,
but I think it would be really funny if
it would definitely
they're
be
like,
funny.
all
You
right,
know
we
what
have a
else would be funny,
disgruntled
but
Jimmy
actually,
Butler. What?
you know what else would be funny, but it would actually make sense for the Sixers to do, and I keep thinking about it. And I don't see people mocking him to the Sixers, but I see him getting mocked to the Lakers the pick after. What if the Sixers just stood pat at 16, knowing Joel Embiid's injury history, knowing what this guy is capable of,
Are you
but
talking
maybe
about Zach Edey?
drafting him at 16?
I don't think he's
I mean,
still going
that's
to
not a
be.
bad idea. That
I
like
don't
you
think
play
he's
him
still
20
going to
minutes
be on
sparingly
the
for Joel
board.
Embiid.
I don't think he's still going to be on the board at 16. I think most mock drafts I saw have him going around like 7 to 10-ish, that sort of range. If he's still available at 16, I don't necessarily hate it, because hopefully you get Embiid a quality backup center, which is something that like the Sixers have really needed ever since trading away Andre Drummond. And then it is possibly a guy to take over for Embiid after he's out of his prime, which could be in a few years. And then you can, roll with Maxey and Eddie as your next point guard center duo. It's it is kind of low risk because you do have a great roster around that. I don't hate it too much. I don't love it, but it's a possibility.
I think it would one get something that they need, even though they need a lot because they have 2 roster players right now. 2 gives you insurance for Joel Embiid, and 3, I mean, I'm a Zach Edey hater. You know what I mean? I'm not even a fan of him, but I just think it might be the smart move because I think if he lands at 16, he would probably be the best player on the board,
Well, the only player
and he can
landing at
contribute
16 is
right
Josh
away.
Giddey.
Or you can go the route of trading that pick in that vicinity. I think, what was it, the 23rd or 24th overall pick that they traded to Memphis a couple years back for DeAnthony Melton. So you can go a route like that, but that kind of shows the player that you're going to get. I don't know if they're even going to bring back DeAnthony Melton this year. I would like them to, but I don't know.
I'm hearing they're bringing back Kyle Lowry, which that surprises me.
I mean, he's a good veteran piece that obviously loves Philadelphia, is grown up there. Somebody that gave you good minutes and times. Everybody's saying, oh, he had 0 points in game 7, blah, blah, blah. I mean,
his job wasn't really to get points.
Exactly. That wasn't his job. And I actually like the minutes that he gave throughout the year. I just don't know how steep of a cliff that he's going to fall off of with being up there that far up in age. But yeah, I mean, the work's cut out for the Sixers, what they need to do, because they need pretty much everything. And I think they need to start with getting a wing. But if they can walk away from draft night with somebody that can contribute now, and that could very much be Zach Edey if he's there. And I think that would be a surprise pick, but it would make a lot of sense for the Sixers to do, look into.
Yeah. And it'd be a fun pick. It's like the only guy in this draft that people know who he is right now. I feel like anyone else, even like,
this is like one of the drafts where it's like not even hyped up. Like people are barely even talking about the NBA draft. And I feel like the G League and not too many of the top players that are projected in the draft coming from the college circuit has really kind of floundered people's expectations for the draft.
I heavily agree with you on that. I think a lot of guys going to the G League before the NBA kind of, it's like we don't really know them as well because we watch March Madness, and that's how we get to know a lot of these top college players that are entering the draft. But without them participating in March Madness and them just being in the G League, which nobody watches, it's like we've never heard of these guys.
But I haven't heard any single rumor at all about what if the Sixers package this pick and maybe some future picks to move up in the draft for this player. I haven't even heard one single rumor about that.
I think it's a combination of it being a weak draft class and the G League, because we have seen other G League players, create a big name for themselves going into the draft. So I think it's just like a combination of both this year. But that's the thing is like Zach Edey, like he's not even, a lot of people are projecting him to be a bust, and he's the most popular guy entering the draft. So yeah, but
Last thing, where's Ronnie James getting drafted to, and when?
I would love if the Sixers don't have their second round pick this year. It was forfeited. And I really want the Sixers to draft him, but obviously not at 16. I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers do it later on in the second round.
Lakers got pick 17. Do you think he could be coming off the board that early just to
No,
solidify to make? I mean, they already got JJ
no.
Redick over there. That's another thing that we didn't talk about.
They are really pandering towards LeBron right now.
They really are.
Yeah.
They said there's no more podcasts going on throughout the season. As much as I love LeBron, I mean, we all knew this was going to happen. You know what I mean? And, he's built championship teams before. So getting his hand-picked coach that he loves talking ball, X and O's with, and possibly getting his son. If he wins a ring with his son, I mean, we're talking about established GOAT status, like completely out of question.
Why? Just because the guy's related to him, that makes him better than Jordan? That doesn't even make any sense. But anyway,
his son. If he went out of his way to get his son on the roster and they end up winning a ring together, just imagine that story.
I mean, if Thanasis won a ring in Milwaukee, no one cares about that. It would be like the same thing, just more nepotism. Who cares? But anyhow, that's going to do it for us tonight.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys for tuning in to episode 52 of the Paisan Sports podcast, and we will be back next week.